All right. Hello, Teletrim people out there. Thanks for tuning in for another day of Teletrim live stream. And I thought today was a pretty good one because it's been a really hot day. And I noticed I hadn't drunk anything all day. So I was feeling a bit dehydrated, a bit hungry. So I thought this is actually a good time to talk about hydration and how it affects weight loss and other affects our biology. So I guess the one thing to say is, what is hydration? Well, it's not a metabolic signal. It's not just, hydration is a metabolic signal. It's not just drinking water, okay? Why does this matter? Well, medically what happens is when you are dehydrated, your body releases a hormone, a peptide called vasopressin, and that hormone is linked to fat storage, insulin resistance, big blood sugars, but it's the main water control hormone in your body. We'll talk about that in a sec. One of the big things about hydration is, when you are dehydrated, you feel thirsty. The same circuits that control thirst in the brain, telling me I'm thirsty, are the same ones that control hunger and tell me I'm hungry. So sometimes when you're actually thirsty, you might be standing at the fridge trying to find something to eat. I've been there numerous times, even earlier, and that's what kind of made me think about this topic, was that, hydration is often, or dehydration is often confused with hunger. So just one of the little traps that we can fall into when we're trying to lose weight. One of the reasons, again, that dehydration is important is even just having a sort of a 2% dehydrated body is going to reduce your ability to break down fat. It's going to affect your muscles and your exercise or your energy level, your performance, basically. So what's the takeaway from dehydration kind of globally is that poor hydration is going to make us probably snack more. It's going to make us either exercise less or more poorly. And that's going to stress our body, which is going to raise our cortisol. And from our previous little streams that cortisol is that stress hormone that says, let's store things as fat, not as the things we want. And again, being hydrated, make sure that we have the energy. Being hydrated means we have the water we need for our body to run the pathways to make energy for our body. Where if we don't, we have to use alternate pathways. So we use a bit more energy that way. Hold on, give me a second. Is that working? There we go. Just trying to, there we go. There's a chat. Sorry, I couldn't see my questions there. Okay. The other thing that hydration is important, and you probably notice it in people, is that people who are chronically hydrated or chronically low hydrated, they might look a little older, a little more aged. So being chronically hydrated stresses the body long term. So your biological markers of aging actually show you as older and aging faster. We're going to talk on Friday about metabolic syndrome, but being dehydrated chronically puts you at risk of that metabolic syndrome, and it also strains your kidneys. So quick little takeaways, and then I'm going to talk about what that vasopressin hormone is quickly. Again, hunger and thirst are wired through the same brain circuits, and our body often gets it wrong. Dehydration is a stress signal, and our body, when it's stressed, stores fat. We need that energy to get away from predators or fight or do whatever it is. And just hydrating in general is good, but overhydrating or using water as a trick to go, I'm going to stay hydrated. Water's not a weight loss trick. It's metabolic hygiene. It's something you should do, like brushing your teeth. Make sure that you stay hydrated. So we talked about vasopressin, and this is that sort of water sensing hormone. It's made in the hypothalamus, where a lot of these hormones are made. And vasopressin works on your kidneys, and it works The vasopressin hormone works as like a water tap. It helps control our fluid balance, so it helps us decide if we should let water out or hold on to water. And one of the other things it does is it helps do vasoconstriction, or constrict our blood vessels or our blood pressure. So if we have low amounts of water, low blood pressure, it helps try to squeeze our blood pressure up. But the big thing is that it controls our water retention, holding on to water, or water releasing, making wee. Yeah, so think of it like a water tap. If I'm already pretty full, I don't need to turn on the water tap. I don't need to turn up my vasopressin. I don't need to put on fat, okay, and keep things good. Again, if we're feeling hungry and that vasopressin's running around, our body's going to want more water, okay? So that's going to make us feel hungry because of those same circuits, and we're going to try and eat more. The other thing as well is sometimes we eat because caveman brain-wise, foods contain water. Like think eating a cucumber, we might get some water from that food. Or foods that are really salty help us retain water. They help hold on to water. So our body's going to, if I eat that bag of chips, the salt's going to help me just hold on to the water and not let it run out the tap. So again, another reason to stay hydrated, or reason our body finds water so important. What else we go? I guess one of the things you notice is you might see boxers who don't drink any water for 24 hours, or models who don't drink water for 24 hours, and maybe even you've noticed in yourself within a day your weight's shifted one way or the other, several pounds, calories, or somewhere in between, shifted quite a bit. And part of that is just our body shifting fluid in and out of cells, in and out of muscles. So quite important. Okay. Again, we'll brush on a few more things here and there. Okay. Oh, not seeing that. Okay. I see. I can show questions. No. Okay. Good. So one of the things as well is hydration can change how GLP-1 and hunger hormones behave, right? So we know GLP-1 slows gastric emptying, and being dehydrated, it can do things like make you feel nauseous, make that stomach acid a bit more concentrated. Being dehydrated can lead to constipation. We don't have the energy making capacity, so we can feel tired. So what we want to do is use hydration to do all these things. And you're like, well, why is this important? And so somebody asked, GLP-1, so I need an injection medication for hydration? Okay. Sorry. The things we assume. So GLP-1, you hear about it in the news. It's one of those medications, the injectables, isn't it? Our body actually makes GLP-1 naturally. So it's made mostly in the small and large intestine. Okay. And it does all the things you read about, slows gastric emptying, changes your hunger signals, reduces hunger, increases satiety, increases fullness. So we make that naturally. What the injectables or what the medications do is the one in our body is short acting, so it gets broken down pretty quick. So if you imagine, I eat, I make it, I have it as long as I need, and then my body breaks it down and reuses components of that hormone somewhere else. The medications are long-acting versions of that hormone, so they tend to stay around longer, hence why you feel fuller longer, less hungry longer, is because that's how those medicines are made. So it's important because hydration is really good for our guts. If we're constipated and we're feeling stretched, it's going to mess with our own GLP-1. It's going to make us feel hungry or not full or over full. It's going to just mess with those signals, and our brain's going to tell us, well, we need water because we want to poop, we want to do whatever, but we're getting mixed signals. So by hydrating, we can tolerate appetite suppression in general. So just not eating, our body can tolerate that better. We feel less kind of fake hungry signals, so we're not standing at the fridge when we're really thirsty if we're hydrated. And then we can just be a bit more consistent with whatever diet we're doing, whatever treatment we're doing. So that's where we're at. Yeah. So a lot of GLP-1, natural GLP-1, or even medication side effects can actually be related to dehydration side effects. And again, part of that with the medications is that you just don't feel hungry, so you may not remember to drink or feel like you need to drink. I guess sort of tying in with yesterday's talk about visceral fat and the difference between subcutaneous and visceral fat. We'll come back to that. Let me come back to that. So other reasons hydration is important is our muscles. So muscles versus fat. Muscles are predominantly water, okay? So there's a lot of water in the muscle, partly because there's a lot of electrolytes, they need a lot of energy, there's things that are going on. Fat is really these long chain molecules that are big and hard and don't need much water. I mean, you can even think, I pour oil on a cup of water, floats to the top. Oil and water don't mix. Muscles, lots of water. What happens when you're dehydrated is a couple of things to your muscles. One, your muscles can shrink. So if your muscles shrink, just imagine, someone's giving you a tight bear hug. You're not going to be working your best. You're going to be fighting your intercellular machinery. Everything's just not going to be working. And that's the same for muscles. So they can't make the proteins that they need to grow. They can't use electrolytes or salts the right way or as efficiently because they're under duress, or they don't have the ability to kind of, shuffle around those electrolytes. They can't access sugar, good sugars, that they need, or they can't pull in sugars as well because they don't have the water to kind of move that stuff around. So what happens is you have trouble getting sugar in and out. You don't have any sort of energy reserves or metabolic reserves for your muscles. And so it makes it hard to gain muscle. You start to break down muscle, because why break down fat when we need water? It's really hard to break down. We'll just break down this muscle, which is mostly water. And you go from there. So I guess when you think about, should I have this drink of water, or why am I not drinking? Poor hydration means that muscle loss is going to be greater than fat loss. And if we lose muscle, we know that muscle loss slows our resting metabolic rate. And that means it's going to be harder to burn the energy intake we have. So that slower metabolic rate is going to lead to probably a regain of weight down the line. Okay. I guess one of the things I see in my GP patients is that as we all get older, we don't work out as much, we don't do as much, particularly in the old. And we see, a lot of old people, they might have their cup of tea in the morning, or they're on medications, or maybe their heart's not as good, so they can't handle as much water, or they're on a fluid restriction for certain reasons. And so one of the things they do is you notice that older people tend to lose muscle. A lot of that's big muscles, like their bum and their legs, because those are big, meaty muscles. But they lose muscle, and it's kind of natural as we get older. We're not as much, but losing muscle is one of the biggest predictors of disability when you're older, getting admitted into a nursing home, and even early death or mortality. So I think one of the big things is, just make sure that you're drinking water to protect your muscles. Is like making a deposit at the bank. Your muscles are your metabolic savings account, and you want to make a deposit, not a withdrawal. Okay? And losing fat's what you want to do. You want to protect muscle, and that hydration helps you do both. If we're protecting our muscle, then we can use the fat. Okay. I guess talking about sort of my older patients, I guess, and tying into yesterday, we talked about all that extra visceral fat. And visceral fat, we said yesterday, was that fat that's around your organs. And, it's responsible for things like the insulin resistance, which we talked about last week. Increases your cardiovascular, your heart risk factors. It's also a source of sort of chronic inflammation. And, it affects your blood pressure, your blood sugar, short and long term, your cholesterol, and even if you've got lots of weight gain, it can affect your breathing. So sleep apnea, you affect your sleeping. And this is important because these things sustained over time are going to increase our mortality. They're going to lower our lifespan. So we're not going to live as long. And what we really want to do with medicine is live healthily and ideally live longer, but not just live longer, but live well while we're living longer. So if we take staying hydrated to help our weight loss, and we're going to have a good plan, we're going to do this long term, it's going to lower all our causes of mortality. It's going to help us out across the board in living better and longer. And it's going to help reduce things like dementia and cancer and just being frail and your ability, the chance of having a fall. So it's not about living longer. It's about kind of reducing that disease window so that we're healthier for as long as we live. Let me see what else we do. We talk about that. I guess let's talk about let's wrap it all together with sort of this week and a little bit of last week. Some quiet weight loss habits that predict our long-term success. Okay, so there's probably 4 big things that we can do to make sure that we're successful with our weight loss goals and just living. And we talked about sleep yesterday, so sleep regularity, hydration, eating enough protein. They've recently changed it to eat double, and then just being weight stable. And what I mean by that is, we don't want these rapid swings in our weight. We want to lose weight and treat this like a long-term chronic condition, which is what weight gain is, what fat is, something we're going to fight. So we don't want big swings. We want to stay, as consistent as we can get, and hopefully at our target range where we want to go. And if we can do that, then we can reduce our inflammation. We can reduce our hormones just being in chaos. And we can prevent yo-yo dieting or yo-yo weight gain and weight loss and the effects that has on our body and skin. And we got to use the science. Use your medical professionals. Ask someone who knows and knows the evidence, because you don't want to use the viral habits that are out there. You want to find the ones that actually work and are backed by research. Okay, it's boring. Longevity is boring. Weight loss is boring. But them being boring is why it works. Is because the people who actually stay and do the work, researching, finding the right answers, helping you, are the ones who find the stuff that actually works and deliver it to you. Okay, so and you got to trust in there. So to loop it all back to water, and I see we've got a couple of questions, so I'll get those. Sorry, guys. Again, with the hydration, sometimes people who are struggling with weight loss, they're not failing; they're just dehydrated. I'm hungry. Am I thirsty? No. We can easily solve one. I think that's it. So, weight loss isn't about sort of shrinking your body. It's about reducing the metabolic stresses happening in your body. So your body can age well, your body can lose fat well, and it can stay healthy overall well. Okay. Good. Now let me get to some of these questions. Sorry, guys. I built system issues again. There we go. Does drinking more water actually help with weight loss? Um, okay. Um, yes. However, water doesn't burn fat. Okay. What it does is it stops that false hunger, that mixed signal of I want to eat. And so, one, you're not getting all those extra calories that are really just you saying, hey, I need to have a drink. The other thing is that being dehydrated, talked about, is kind of stressful for the body. So if dehydration raises your stress hormones, we know stress hormones say, let's store our energy as fat. So we're not going down that fat loss pathway, we're going down the fat storage pathway. So hydration is just an easy way to eat less without trying. How do I know if I'm hungry or just thirsty? Good question. I mean, there's physical signs. You know, is my skin really probably dehydrated? Is my skin stretchy? Is my tongue kind of white, or doesn't it look nice and pink and moist? Is it really dry and cracked? Those are some clinical signs that you can look at. But I think an easier way to go is, if hunger hits suddenly, or you're suddenly craving specific foods, that's probably your body saying, hey, I'm thirsty, and these foods are going to have water, or these foods are going to have the salts to help me store. And that suddenness is because you can go weeks without food per se, but you can't go very long without water before you really mess up your body or lead to less than ideal outcomes mortal-wise. If you're really hungry, that tends to build slowly. Okay, you're like, oh, rumble, I'm feeling a bit hungry. You have a drink of water, that hunger doesn't go away, that feeling doesn't go away, and you go, okay, this is probably me saying I'm hungry. Also, when you go, oh look, the last time I ate something was about 12 hours ago, or I just drank some water, that might be a good clue as well. So, this was a good one. Is there an ideal amount of water for weight loss? I guess there's not really a magic number. I guess you can do things like appearance. How does my urine look like? Is it really concentrated in dark yellow, or is it mostly clear? Mostly clear is probably a good sign that you're well hydrated. Am I really hungry? Am I starving and craving? If I'm not really hungry, starving, craving, then chances are I'm probably hydrated. Yeah. Does hydration affect belly fat? Does hydration affect belly fat? I'll say indirectly. So yes, indirectly. Part of that's because when we're dehydrated, we're stressed, and that raises cortisol. We know cortisol is our stress hormone. Stress says store energy as fat. So if we're not stressing our body, we're not taking our energy and storing it as fat. So kind of an end around, but I think, staying hydrated does help. Yeah. Can dehydration cause muscle loss during weight loss? Again, I sort of mentioned before, yes, muscle is mostly water. Poor hydration is going to reduce your strength, it's going to reduce your recovery. It makes muscle loss more likely than fat loss, or more easier for the body than fat loss. So I think dehydration is going to cause or lead to muscle loss. All right. All right. And I guess to sort of wrap up with this one, what's the most underrated habit for long-term weight loss? The most underrated habit for long-term weight loss, again, is going to be the boring basics: hydration, sleep, protein, and just being consistent, stable in what you're doing. And that's going to lead you to long-term success. I know that was the last one, but this one popped up, and this one's kind of funny. So it's about that vasopressin. Does holding in my pee train my vasopressin hormone thing to stop working? I know I mentioned it was like a water tap. So holding your pee is that's a normal habit. It's not gonna break this hormonal signal. So vasopressin is going to respond to your body signals, how much water you're losing, sweat, pee, whatever, what kind of electrolytes and salts you have in your body and the concentrations of those. So holding your pee isn't going to break your hormonal axis. Okay. That was a fantastic question. Thank you. All right. We'll see you guys tomorrow for more streams. And again, on Friday, we'll talk about metabolic syndrome and give a good little crash course on that and what we can do about it. So thanks for listening and thanks for the question, guys. We'll see you next time.